a year ago, I decided I wanted to help small businesses simplify their workflow. So when Online X asked me to talk about boosting productivity to small business owners, I was so happy for the opportunity to share my knowledge. When you open a new company, it's hard to know where to start. So you do this, and then where do you go? And then what? So my mind works in flowchart, and I know that if we do this, then that means that this. And today, I'd like to speak to you about the basic processes most new businesses will need at one point or another. Now, before we continue, you should know the chat is open, so please feel free to leave questions there, and we'll try to get to them at the end. So when I say most new businesses, who am I talking about? Who are you? So oftentimes new business owners are experts in their own field. You can be an expert accountant, graphic artist, designer, writer, marketer, course creator, or any other field. And you know your field better than anyone else. So if I asked a chef how to make a Black Forest cake, he'd probably list off the list of ingredients without beating an eyelash, and the methodologies, and what special equipment they need. But if he were to create the same course, like a course about that for home bakers, he may be stumped at how to manage the process. So you may be a company of one or have a team of employees. You may just be thinking about opening your company, or you may be a veteran. But if you're here today, there's a good chance your workflow isn't as smooth as you'd like it to be, if it exists at all. Or you may be looking for the right tools to improve and simplify your workflow so that it's more efficient. But why is it important to define a workflow process? So you may have a vision of where you want your company to go, but you know the steps your clients go through from initial contact to actual work. Are you able to handle all that work coming your way, and will you be able to scale it up? Many of the visionaries and small business owners that I've spoken with hold themselves back because they're afraid they won't know how to handle all those inbound clients that are going to come to them. And not having a workflow in place means that there's a greater chance that things will fall between the cracks. But when you have a defined workflow and you know what the next step is, you can automate or outsource parts of the process. And basically, it makes your life easier. So what kind of processes are there? Well, about 1 million, probably more. But today, let's discuss some basic processes most companies have to deal with. So every company has to deal with finding clients, and then meeting clients, and ultimately selling to clients. So I'm not going to talk about marketing. That's a whole field in itself, and there's actually an entire channel for it on Online X. I'm also not going to speak about how to price your product or build your brand. Once again, each of these is an entire series of its own. Today, I'd like to speak about the first process you will need in order to sell your clients, onboard them, and then offboard them. So for each step in the process, I'll mention why you need to set this up and a few tools that you can look into. We'll cover finances, scheduling, managing your contacts and your pipeline, meeting your clients, sending out proposals and signing contracts, onboarding, and of course, managing ongoing work, and offboarding and receiving feedback for your work. So when opening, oops, well, that was wrong. That just jumped, excuse me. That's what happens when you don't look at what you're clicking. Sorry about that. So when opening your business, you first need to define your financial entity. So these definitions may vary from country to country. Knowing your financial entity will help you define what tools you need to use and if they have any special requirements. For example, in Israel, where I'm from, your company's revenue can define if you need to submit reports every 2 months or once a year. And this makes a difference in the invoicing tools that you choose, because if you need to report more often, then they need to speak with the tax and finances systems in the country, or in Israel in my case. So once we have our financial entity defined, we need to choose how to accept payments and how to send our clients payment requests, invoices, and receipts. So there are a few different options for accepting payments. The most popular are PayPal and Stripe for sure. These integrate with most tools, and on the web, they don't actually require your customers to have an account. But the downside to both of these is that they charge an arm and leg. So for regular payments, PayPal and Stripe take 2.9% of the transaction plus 30 cents on the transaction. For international transactions, PayPal actually takes 4.4 to 5.4% of the transaction, plus they give you a really low conversion rate, plus they keep your money for 8 days. So not really great. Stripe is actually better at giving their clients the money, but they're not open to banks worldwide. So in Israel, for example, I can't open a Stripe account. So that doesn't work for me. There's also Apple Pay, Google Pay, Authorize.net, and a lot of others. And of course, you can always connect to a credit card vendor and accept payments directly in credit card, which is really great. Each vendor has different percentages and conversion rates, and there may be monthly fees. So do your homework and see what works best for you. The last option I want to talk about is money transfer. Many countries have local transfers via phone, right? There's Zelle in the US, there's BitPay in Israel, and I don't remember the name of the South African processor, but I'm pretty sure there's one as well. But for international transfers, you'll want to look into online options such as Payoneer or Wise, used to be called TransferWise. So setup is relatively easy and low cost, and methodology is different, but it's the cheapest out there of the options that I've found. From my experience, transfers from the US are more complex than they are from Israel, for example. I've had companies that have had to do wire transfers, and everybody just lost on that. So that's not a really great option. My best advice to you is to have multiple options and see what works best for you and your client. If you can get your vendors and clients to open a Wise account, that's actually best because transfers take seconds and it's the cheapest option around. Check what apps are right for your country and check which integrations work with other tools. The more your tools talk to each other, the easier it will be to build workflows that work for you. And I'm probably going to say that a lot throughout this presentation. If you can connect your payment processing tool to your invoicing tool, it will save you a lot of headaches and heartaches. So I use QuickBooks for invoicing, but I can't set up merchant services from Israel, so I can't have a pay this invoice now button. That makes things a lot easier if you have it. There's also Xero and Green Invoice and so many others. You should also automate your invoicing after payment, so a sales receipt is delivered on payment. This just takes things off your mind. Personally, I found the financial aspect of my business the most challenging when I started, but having the right tools helped me immensely and reduce the time I needed to spend on finances. Once you're up financially, you need a way for prospects to contact you. This is where we can start discussing marketing and setting up a website, launching pages or landing pages, and of course, social media. But today I want to focus on scheduling. One of my first jobs was as an administrative assistant. My job was to answer the phone and do some technical stuff, but I learned so much from the AA I was working with. She managed projects and schedules, and there were a lot of back and forth calls to see when everyone could meet. Since then, which is way back in the 90s, things have come a long way. Things have turned virtual. So this means while there are still VAs having back and forth conversations, and that's fine, there's also an entire industry of scheduling apps out there, and they're meant to make the process easier. So the idea is that you can send prospects or clients a link to your calendar without having to actually give them access. You set availability times and meeting lengths and locations and so much more. Using such a tool, you basically set up a meeting page. You define the length of the meeting and the location. You know, it could be virtual, phone, online, with tools such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and of course, maybe even in person, because those are going to happen again at some point. You also define your availabilities and a lot of other variables, like I said, like a buffer or how much notice needs to be given before a meeting. So I've been searching for a scheduling tool for a really long time, over 6 months. And the industry standard seems to be Calendly, and I understand why, but I personally don't like it for various reasons. I've seen better tools, but they don't have all the features. And up until about 3 days ago or a week ago, my search was not complete. The ideal tool for me should be easy to use, but not just for me, also for my clients. And I want a tool that people can easily compare their availability to mine without having to go back and forth and back and forth. So here's a list of the main features that I look for when I'm working with, or when I'm searching for a good scheduling tool. The first of them is ease of defining availability. Like I said, how easy is it to define my availability across all meeting and event types and per separate meeting as well? I want to be able to define a template, but also change every meeting on its own. Can I block off time for a specific meeting, but not for others? For example, I want to have a link for each of my clients so that they can use that to book meetings with me. But I also want a link for prospects, and I don't want the availability for prospects for new leads to be the same as the availability for my clients. So I want to be able to block off those times. And can I do that easily? The third feature I'm looking for is the interface for setting availability. Most of these apps are using blocks. So you just define Monday, 9 a.m. to 2, Tuesday, 9 a.m. to 5. But ideally, it would be with a calendar, and you could actually block off times and mark them. And that way it sits within your calendar so you can see your real availability. And that just makes things so much easier with the calendar interface. The fourth function I'm looking for is, can I set email reminders easily, and can they include variables such as the guest name, the company name, the meeting information, and any other data? And another great feature is if you can automate follow-up emails, because the more flexibility you have in setting up reminder times and the content and the structure, it means you have more control over your customer experience. And that means you control what your customers or prospects see. The next feature is, can I accept payments via the scheduling tool? And of course, does it integrate with my payment processing? So if I can't do Stripe, I can only do PayPal. It doesn't help me if they only have Stripe integration, right? Which is a shame, because one of the tools that I really liked only had Stripe integration. And you may not think this is relevant for you at the moment because you're not charging for meetings, but that day will come, my friend, and it will come a lot faster than you think. So the more your tools talk to each other, the easier it will be to build a scalable workflow and something that works for you. The next feature I'm looking for is, how easy is it for my clients to schedule time? Can they see their own calendar overlaid? Most apps don't have that. Can they choose how long they want the meeting to be? Or do I just send them a fixed meeting that I define the length for? This may be a feature you want to enable. This may be a feature you don't want to enable. Each their own. The next feature that I'm looking for is forms. I want to be able to ask a guest to fill in a form before they schedule a meeting with me. This can be a qualifying form, and it can be just a regular form. Most apps don't have it as a qualifying form. They just have a regular form. And is it customizable? Is it not customizable? Can it upload file? Can they upload files, or do they have to do a workaround to upload files? And that's why I recommend testing any app. This is true of any app. Before you commit to it, use a free trial. A lot of these are freemiums, which means that you can play with them before you have to upload them, and you have a free package before that you get all the premium features. So utilize that. The next feature I'm looking for is buffer times. So also, I want to see if they have meeting limitations. I don't like back-to-back meetings. In the past, you needed it for travel. For me, I just want a cup of tea, biological break. So I like to leave a buffer between my meetings before and a buffer after. And you need to breathe, right? So setting a buffer will enable you to have that built in and avoid those back-to-backs. A lot of tools enable you to set the limit of meetings you can have in one day or in 1 week or even in a month, and that's great. Some tools also give the option to define how far in advance people can book the meeting, right? So another feature that they have is how much notice they have to give you before. I don't enable booking meetings less than 24 hours before. That's just because I need to prepare. And the last feature that I'm looking for is branding. Can you brand your meeting page to include your logo, your brand colors, your fonts? Can you embed your app on the scheduling app on your website? How much of the layout and text is changeable? And usually in most apps that I've seen, this is a premium feature, but again, this is for when you're ready to grow. So some tools you should look at include Calendly, Acuity, Mixmax, SavvyCal, Boomerang, 10 to 8, X.ai, and my favorite, the one that I just found recently, is Schedule Once. Okay, and there are a lot more. But just a quick note, at least 3 of these have a free option to create more than one scheduling link or event types, and that can be really useful for new businesses. So whatever tool you choose for scheduling, ideally it should connect to whatever application you're using to manage your contacts. So why is it important to manage your contacts? Well, when you just start out, you may have a few contacts, prospects, and clients, and an Excel sheet may be enough, or even your notebook. But as you grow, so will this list. And having a spreadsheet or notebook just won't cover it. Things will ultimately fall between the cracks and go missing and get mixed up. And we're humans, so errors will happen as they inevitably do. So you need a customer relationship management tool. That's CRM, right? A CRM will help you know where each of your contacts and clients is in the process, also known as a pipeline. So have you just set up the meeting with them? Have you met with them? Have you sent them a proposal? Have they signed the contract? Have you sent the invoice? Have they paid it? Have you set a project start date? So in addition, you'll have all the relevant information about who your primary contact is at the company, the contact details, and any interesting facts you collect that may be useful down the line, like birthdays, kids' names, their favorite brand of coffee. Ideally, when someone contacts you, you'll create an entry for them in your CRM as a lead, and this means they've entered your pipeline. Leads move along the pipeline based on what interactions you have with them and what stage they are in the process. You can build your pipelines to include the different stages based on your products, sales process, or any other criteria that you want. The number of CRM tools out there is growing by the minute. Picking one really depends on what interface you love most, and like I said before, which tools integrate best with your other tools. So for example, if you're a Gmail user, you'll want to check out Streak or Copper. Streak sits within your Gmail and functions very similar to a smart spreadsheet. It also works great for Teams. Copper is actually a standalone tool, but has seamless integration with Gmail and has a great Chrome extension that lets you manage your contacts without actually having to leave Gmail. Within the app, though, you can actually define different workflows and automations and a bunch of other things that can really simplify your workflow and make your life easier. Other tools that I would recommend taking a look at are Pipedrive, that integrates really well with your email system, as well as Close. Now, Close actually also sits on your phone and can record when you have phone calls or exchange text messages with contacts. It'll also bump up contacts you haven't been in touch with based on timeframes that you predefine. So it's a really great tool and has features not many other CRMs do, but it also requires investment in setting up. And for more complex pipelines and processes, I would recommend taking a look at a tool such as Wrike. This also includes some sort of project management, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So selecting your CRM really depends on your workflow and your needs. Most tools, like I said, have a free trial or even a free version that you can use. So play around with the tools until you find something you feel comfortable with. After the initial contact has been made, the meeting set up, and your CRM updated, it's time to actually meet the client. So remember those days when we used to meet face-to-face? Those were great, right? Well, for me, not so much. I've been working remotely for about 6 years now. Before COVID era, we used Skype and what was then Google Hangouts. Then the pandemic closed everyone inside and we moved our meetings online. This is actually something great that happened in my mind. We learned to value our time more and we learned to have more efficient meetings. And while online tools improved, it also meant that we had to listen to each other better. Yeah, there are technical glitches in any tool, but when you learn to use one tool really well, you can make your meetings a place to shine personally and professionally. So choose the tool that works best for you. Zoom, Google Meets, Microsoft Teams, and others offer a wide range of packages for one-to-one meetings and group meetings and webinars. Integrate your tool with your scheduling app and calendar, and be sure to simplify your meeting setup, right? So remember, the more your tools talk to each other, the easier it will be to build a workflow that works for you. I love working with Zooms and Microsoft Teams. They're a bit different, but Teams just reminds me more of Skype that I really, really liked at the time. And plus, they don't have a 40-minute limit for meetings with over 2 participants. So that's really useful if you're on a tight budget and you need to have large meetings. If you haven't done so already, spend some time learning how to use your meeting software. So learn to share your screen efficiently so you don't have to turn it on and off between switching screens. Learn to share video and audio and how to give control and take control of somebody else's screen. And of course, using virtual backgrounds, right? Everybody should know that by now, I guess, but we don't always know it on our tool of choice. So it just makes a really big difference when you know how to use your tool, and it'll make a difference for you and the person you're meeting with. Using these tools can actually make an experience unique within the framework of the tool. So you can brand it, you can make it your own with company colors, with a background that's right for you, and how you set things up. And if you're just starting out, record the meetings and then use your recordings for 2 purposes. 1, learn from them. Listen to how you interact and see what works and what doesn't work, what works best for you and what doesn't work at all, right? It's going to be a little bit hard, or maybe a little bit hard on a personal level, but it's totally worth the investment. And the second thing is to see what questions repeat themselves and use that as content for content marketing later on. And if you're allowed to use the clips from the meetings, even better, because then you have video content. But I digress, and that's actually part of the marketing, so we're not going to go into there. So back to our process. Your meeting was a real great success. Now what? So your next step may vary depending on your specific workflow. In a perfect world, you would now send some sort of document to your prospect. Some send a meeting summary, some send a statement of work, some send a proposal, some send a contract. Without going into the legal aspects of each type of document, it's clear that you need to present your client with something depending on what stage they're at. In many cases, there are a few options to select from: your services or product that your client can purchase from you. Sending them a proposal that they can choose from is a great idea. But personally, I use a Word template that has a repetitive text for my clients. I use that as a basis to add or delete from that as I need, as I see necessary. But many industries require something a bit more. And so accounting and branding services, those are great examples because they have a multitude of services, and each client can pick and choose what's right for them. So the proposals they send out may include features and a variety of options, and they need a tool that's a bit more robust. So these tools are out there for many fields, and some do way more than just send proposals. In accounting, you have Practice Ignition and Go Proposals, and obviously many others. For health and wellness industry, there's Practice Better. And for general purpose software, like if you're looking for tools just for general proposals, then check out Better Proposal or Proposify. These tools basically use building blocks, right, that you predefine. When you're ready to build a proposal for a new client, you put in the different blocks and make the proposal personalized for that client. That can save you a lot of time and headache. Most of these apps also connect to payment processing tools where you can accept, that's a hard word to say. You can accept a down payment or even full payment through the app. They also have electronic signatures built in, so the client signs the contract as part of the proposal and then pays based on the terms set in the contract. Having an app like this is very useful to streamline your process and ensure your customers feel you're giving them 100% without actually having to spend 100 hours of billing on this proposal. So yeah, 100 may seem exaggerated, but I can assure you there are designers out there that are spending 45 hours on a proposal that may never bring in any revenue. So you really want to streamline this as much as possible. If you're not sending proposals, or like me, you're using a simple Word document, you're going to want to have your client sign a contract at the very least. So signing a contract seems like something technical, and often it is, but it's also part of the customer onboarding process, and you should make it as smooth and seamless as possible. Gone are the days when you send a document, someone prints it, then they sign it, then they scan it, and then they send it back to you. Just too many steps, if you ask me. So if you have your clients sign contracts, NDAs, or any other documentation, it's easiest to do so using an electronic signature app, such as HelloSign, DocuSign, PandaDoc, and many others. I find this useful when my American clients want me to sign a W-8 BEN for tax purposes. If they've uploaded it and marked the correct fields as mandatory, it makes filling that complicated form so much easier. The advantage of this kind of application is that you upload a document or a template, mark the fields that need to be filled and signed, and then your user receives a link. When the document opens, the app shows them exactly where they have to sign, and once signed, everybody gets a copy of the document. So first of all, it gives your customer a feeling that everything has been thought through. This is just part of the process, and they're going to feel more confident with their choice to work with you. And secondly, as a company, having an electronic signature makes it easier for you to consolidate all of your documentation in one location and automate processes that begin once the contract is signed. This means that onboarding a new client is seamless. No hiccups, nothing falling between the cracks. Simple, right? So what would this look like? Wait, before we do that, let's look at where we are so far. This is what we've discussed so far. So our client has made initial contact. We schedule a call or two sometimes, and now we're sending them either a proposal or a contract. Great. Process has been smooth. There have been relatively few steps, and we've automated what we could. And now we're ready to move forward and onboard the client. If you require a deposit to be made, you want to send them an invoice using your invoicing tool. You may need to send them an email asking them for more information or data. You may need to set up another meeting with them, or you may need to access their accounts. So you'll need usernames and passwords, or you may need to create accounts for them in various software. Whatever your next steps are, you have to have a list of tasks that needs to be completed to ensure nothing is falling between the cracks. How do we do that? How do we keep track of all of the tasks that need to do in order to ensure that our customers are getting the best service? So if you have a written out proposal that lists the steps, you're halfway there. I'm a big believer in templates. They save you time and mean you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time anew. So for onboarding clients, it's no different. Make a list of all the steps you have to go through every time you onboard a new client. You can also add steps you sometimes go through and then just skip them, because again, it's easier to delete than to think, wait a minute, what did I miss? So like I said, a list of all the tasks will take you only halfway, and we're here to make things as smooth as possible. So how do we improve the system? Well, that's where a project management tool would be really useful. There are a ton of project management tools out there. Each has its methodology and each is a little bit different. Each has its unique perspective on how to manage things. Personally, I'm a big fan of Asana, though I wasn't always their biggest fan. There are others who will swear by ClickUp, and yet others who will say Monday.com, Jira, or even Trello. Each of these has a different way of structuring their projects and tasks, and each builds their teams a little bit differently and has different integrations for different purposes. For example, Jira is a great tool for developers. It integrates with Bitbucket. It enables you to upload branches and update code, including the content of the update and a README text. But for non-developers, that's just useless. Most of these apps that I've listed here have a free option and even free packages. So like I said before, try them out and see which works best for your workflow. In general, the way a project management tool works is that you create projects. Within each project, you have tasks. Tasks can be segmented into groups or sections based on different criteria. Tasks can also have dependencies. So only when task A is complete, task B becomes available. This is important if you're on a schedule and need to know who's doing what and when. When you create the tasks, you assign them to a team member and you give it due dates and priority. So working within a project management tool enables you and your team to always be on the same page. So when onboarding a client, for example, we have a template that includes a list of all the tasks we need to follow. Each task will be assigned to a team member responsible. And in many project management tools, once you create the project from a template, you can set a start date and an end date, and all the other dates in the template will fall into place. Using Zapier or most other third-party integration tools, you can set a new project to be created for a client based on this template the minute the contract is signed or when a deposit is made, right? So, or when an invoice is sent. So whatever works for you, but it just streamlines everything. And then your team members get notifications that they have a new task and things just start to flow from there. Ideally, you'll also want to send an email or maybe 2 or more to your new clients with instructions about the process and what they can expect, what the timeline is, or to get back any requests that they have. To do this, I would highly recommend using an email service provider, also known as an ESP. An email service provider is a great tool for ongoing engagement with your clients and your audience in general as well. So having an email list is important because it gives you direct access to those that are interested in your services. Your list can be made up of various segments, that is groups based on different criteria. That's all a segment is. So for example, you have a list of your current clients, past clients, leads or prospects, whatever you call them, and a list for connections that you made elsewhere. And you can also segment based on geographical locations, interests, previous purchases, and so much more. I mean, the sky's the limit really when it comes to segmentation. So when you use a good ESP, you can use it for more than just sending out a newsletter to subscribers every so often. That's important in itself and worthy of an entire hour of its own, but we're not going there right now. So this tool can help you engage with your clients at different points in their lifetime cycle with you in general, and it can help you automate your processes. So if you have onboarding emails that you send to new clients or notifications to your team when a new client joins, or you can also use your ESP to schedule that send and do a lot of other things to prepare for your contact down the road. You can use it to wish your contacts happy birthday if you have the date. Remember, we said collect data from before, congratulate them on work anniversaries, a child's birthday. The more data you collect about your clients, the better you can automate and personalize the engagement, right? And personalization is a lot more than just, that name. Personalization is an important part of the process. And you should use the data to make each email seem like a perfect fit for your audience. Make them feel that you know them. Make them feel like that you're in their head. It's scary, but it can be done. And I'm not talking about, big brother is watching kind of way, but as a small business, that personal touch is very, very important. It's actually important as a big business as well, but even more so when you're small. You're going to try and find the cheapest solution for an ESP. Don't. I usually suggest free tools, and I love that you can do so much for so little cost. But in this case, in the case of ESP, a little costs a lot. Cheap is very, very expensive. MailChimp is an ESP that has a seemingly attractive starter pack. It gives you 2,000 contacts for free. And you're going, I don't have 2,000 contacts. That's great, right? But you should know that their designer leaves something to be desired. And I know they've just recently, I think 2 weeks ago, they launched a new designer, and they're still sort of in the midst of launching it. And I haven't tested it yet, but still, you don't want MailChimp. They'll also be limited in terms of automations. They only give you in the free package, they only give you one-step automations, and your sending reputation may be affected because MailChimp doesn't have the greatest reputation. What does that mean? What is sending reputation? Well, since we're pressed for time, I'm not really sure that I can go into it, but the TLDR version is the worse your sending reputation, the more chance you have that your email will end up in the spam folder, and nobody wants that. So I could talk about ESPs for hours. I tested many of the tools out there, MailerLite and Flooddesk and Drip and ConvertKit and GetResponse and a lot more. I created accounts. I tried to set up emails. I created forms. I looked for ease of use, automation, and segmentation. Every single time it came back to ActiveCampaign. That's my tool of choice. For e-commerce, Klaviyo is currently a better choice because it has Reveal integration, but okay, I'm not going to go there. So ActiveCampaign is actually working also on catching up in the e-commerce field as well. But 9 times out of 10, you'll want to check out ActiveCampaign. The cost of setting up ActiveCampaign is $9 a month when you pay annually. So that's $108. And that gives you up to 500 contacts. And if you get access, if you buy that, you get access to all of their automation features, one type of form, and full segmentation. Their designer for the emails and the automation is very intuitive and easy to use, and they give out free recipes for different workflows. This is actually very useful for course and webinar signups. So as you can see, having an ESP will help you onboard and engage with your audience. And here's another example that will help you move forward, and we'll just move us forward in today's talk. When you've completed a project with a client, use a task or a tag in your project management tool to trigger an email that requests feedback from your client. So it's easy to set up and one less task to think about when offboarding the client. So let's talk about offboarding for a minute. Your contact with your client doesn't end when you submit the work, when you deliver the work, or you get paid. In fact, if you're wise, you will understand the value of customer lifetime value. It costs less to retain an existing client than it does to acquire a new one. So once again, a huge topic for another day and another channel, and I digress. But the reason I mention it is because there are repetitive tasks that you're probably doing when you close off projects. One of them should be getting feedback from your clients. And the reason I mention it is because the best way to retain clients and make sure you're doing the best and learn to improve is to get feedback. And the best way to get feedback is using a form. Now, forms can be used in so many different things during onboarding, during calls, to do surveys, and as an example on this slide, at the end of an interaction with your client. Learn what worked and what didn't. Where do you need to improve and what can you brag about next time? Get recommendations and testimonials for your website and social media. Use a form that you can send to your clients automatically, and then have that form feed into a spreadsheet where you can analyze the data and see if you're measuring up to the goals you set for yourself. So there's some great tools for forms out there. Before I mention these tools, you should know that some of the project management tools have forms integrated. It's usually a paid feature, and you can use the forms from in there. Google Forms is free, and you can do some pretty complex stuff with it. Its biggest limitation is that it's very limited in design, but otherwise it's a great tool to use. It also exports your responses to a spreadsheet, and then you can analyze and manipulate that. A step up from that is Typeform. This tool has a free option that's not bad, but it's limited to 6 questions, and there's no question logic unless you upgrade. But otherwise, it's one of the best tools out there. The upside of Typeform is that you can design it quite a bit, and that's great for branding. It gives you a great user experience for your clients. And of course, it has some great integrations that are very useful as well. Having a process in place from start to finish will help you streamline your business workflow. It will ensure you get everything done on time and that nothing falls between the cracks. When you're ready to scale, a process will help you easily identify what can be outsourced and what will make the process of handling over the responsibilities easier. So this journey map is a sample flow that integrates the tools you can use, right? We have from schedule a meeting, having a meeting, add a client to a CRM, send a proposal, sign a contract, process payment, manage a project, engage with your customers, and then get feedback. I hope today's talk helped you understand the basic process of and what tools you can use in order to simplify your workflow. I know some of them may seem overwhelming, especially those that require tech, but in all honesty, most of these tools are simple to use once you set them up. So there's a great quote that is usually attributed to Mark Twain, though I've researched it and it's not really his. The secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks and starting on the first one. What's stopping you from taking your first step to boost your productivity? Thank you for your time, and thank you to OnlineX for hosting these great webinars. Let's check the chat and see if we have questions. So let me see that chat. So let's see what we've got here. Okay. There's so much choice when it comes to apps. How do we know which is best for our business? And can we do it on our own, or do we need to consult a consultant or IT person? That's a great question. I highly recommend playing around with your tools on your own to see what works for you and what feels right to you. Because a lot of these tools are very similar. They can do a lot of the same things. And then it's just a question of, how do you feel with them? Like, what works for you? And it really is personal. But then when you get to the point of setup, it's not always simple. ClickUp is a great example. I personally don't like ClickUp. I don't like the look and feel of it, but it is one of the most robust tools. Setting it up to do it properly, to get the best benefit out of it, I would highly recommend getting a consultant to set it up for you. Even if you do the initial workflow, just talk to them and see what else can be done, show them what you've done. Because you probably don't know a lot of the possibilities that are out there and that are available on the tool. But then again, like setting up Zoom is really simple, right? And if you're savvy enough, you can look up stuff on YouTube. YouTube has answers to everything today. But again, it's a matter of where it's a balance, right? So as a small business owner, you have a lot of time and not so much money. So you don't really want to invest, and you have the time to spend to learn it. But as you grow, your time gets, less and less that you can invest in this. And so it's best to work with someone to set up your processes and set up your tools. Okay. Hi there. What is a good free accounting software? I've been using Wave, which has been amazing, except for a few things, and now they won't be available in South Africa anymore. So accounting is, like I said in the beginning, that was my biggest challenge when I just started. I find that it really depends on what's right in your country, because I really wanted to use Xero. Xero is a great tool, but it doesn't integrate with the tax and finances in Israel, so I can't use Xero. Green Invoice is something that almost everybody in Israel uses. I really didn't like it. So I don't have an answer for you per se. I love QuickBooks, and if it integrates with the tax and finances software, like systems in your country, in South Africa, I would highly recommend it. There's an online version and a desktop version, and an accountant that's QuickBooks certified will be able to tell you the difference between those two. There's a financial channel, so I'm sure you can find the answers here on OnlineX as well. I don't have enough knowledge to tell you which is the best free accounting software. I think, well, I know in Israel it's Livchit, but I don't know in South Africa. Another comment, many of these apps are priced in US dollars. It can become very expensive if you need all these apps. Are there all-in-one offerings? Oh, I love that question. And I love that question because I used to be an all-in-one kind of gal, and I wanted an all-in-one tool that does everything, and I don't anymore. I don't like all-in-one apps because an all-in-one app is never going to be as professional in every single field as an app that specifies. I'll give you an example. I'm getting a message. So, and that is, I've lost my train of thought. Active Campaign. They can do a lot of things with landing pages, but they're never going to be as professional at landing pages as Unbounce is. Unbounce only does landing pages. So they have dynamic text and dynamic buttons and the ability to integrate with all these other tools natively. And so that level of professionalism for landing pages, Active Campaign will always be playing catch up. with unbounce. So it's great if I get it in the package that I'm getting anyway with ActiveCampaign. That's great, but I'm not going to upgrade to a plan that has landing pages just because I want that. And this is true of all-in-one offerings. My website has the option to do email service provider tools, but it's not as good as ActiveCampaign is. So again, I always look for something that is very specified. Yes, there are all-in-one offerings depending on what you have. But again, it really depends on what you're, what you're looking for. And like I said, cheap sometimes costs a lot of money, right? So we have to actually know that. Hey, we have another Asana fan. Asana is amazing. Yes, Asana is amazing. Okay, so somebody is talking about Groove Pages and Groove Cell. Let's not go there. I did test them out when they were just in beta. I wasn't a fan, but again, it's very, very personal, and everybody needs to find the tools that they like. For integrations, I didn't talk about integrations in this presentation, but you should know that for integrations, there are a lot of tools out there. There's Zapier and Zoho Flow and Integromat and Segment.io, and there's one on the tip of my tongue that I don't remember, Active.io, I think, or AI. There are a lot of them out there. Zapier has sort of become an industry standard. I personally love it. It integrates really well. But if you're using Zoho CRM, obviously you're going to want to use Zoho Flow because the integration there is going to be so much easier. It's actually pretty good, Zoho Flow, but it really, if you're using the entire Zoho package, I feel I wouldn't use that as a standalone. So yeah, integration tools are really great, and I could talk about those for another hour as well. Let's see what else we have here. South African-based ESP Everlytic. Okay, I'm going to add that to my list. I've never tested that, but thank you very much, Evan, and we'll look into that because I love testing out new software. How do you get team members to go into the Let's Go? To go into the Let's Go where? I don't know what this is talking about. In theory, if you want your team members to go somewhere, you should send them a notification. So if you have a trigger that triggers that notification, that's going to get them to go somewhere. But you should know, and I didn't say this within the presentation, but this is something very important. A tool is only as strong as your commitment to use it. So when I wake up in the morning, I sit down to work and I open my email, I see if there's anything urgent there, and my next stop is Asana. My next stop is my project management tool. And if I have anything going on in other tools like my CRM, then that's going to be my next stop. If you don't go to your project management tool or your CRM daily and check what's going on there and update your tasks and write what your next task is and mark tasks as complete, it's going to be useless for you. There's no point in paying for a product that you're not going to use. And a lot of people pay for products that they don't use. I had a client text me today after I told her about Schedule Once, and she was using Acuity, and she was like, I'm paying 11 pounds to Acuity a month, and I didn't even realize I was paying. So, that money, and I've had that. I had a client who was paying Shutterstock, I think $150 or $350, and they weren't using Shutterstock. They were downloading, they could download about, 750 images, and they were downloading maybe 10. So there wasn't justification. So make sure to be on point with what software you're using. Commit to using that software. And if you're not, then downgrade or stop paying. Cancel your subscription because it's a waste of money. And, it adds up. $3 on this and $9 on that and $20 on that. And before you know it, you spend $100 on software and you're probably not using all of it. So that's why I also don't like to give my credit card when I start a free trial. So companies that say, here's a free trial, you just need to enter your credit card, I won't take the free trial. Constant Contact, when I was looking into ESPs, they wanted my credit card, and I also read up about them that it was harder to cancel. And so I decided not to give my credit card. That was a personal choice. I'm very lucky that I have clients that let me play with new software because they know that I love it and they want to add it to their tech stack. But other than that, if I need to give my credit card, I'm not going to be testing that software. And thank you all. Oh, wait, does project management tool replace a diary? Well, that is a wonderful question. It can. It depends on who you are. I have a calendar. My calendar is updated with my meetings and blocks of time that I close off when I want to work. But I don't put my tasks in my calendar. I'll put my tasks in my project management tool. There are project management tools that will integrate with your calendar as well, or you can set it up to integrate with your calendar as well, or CRM, Streak. If you set a task in Streak, then it will, or in Copper, it will appear in your calendar as a task. So it's a choice whether you want it in your calendar or not. I don't think it replaces a calendar unless you put your meetings into your project management tool, which is also possible because Asana integrates with Zoom, for example. So you can do everything from your project management tool. It really depends on how you like to define your workflow. And there's no one right workflow for everyone. We each have to find the workflow that works for us and the tech stack, what tools we feel most comfortable with that are right for our workflow, that are right for our team, that are right for our location. And like I said, there's no right or wrong. And just because everybody's talking about one tool doesn't mean you have to use it. Use whatever tool you feel most comfortable with, and that's right for you. And it will simplify your workflow and make your life easier. So thank you very much.